The Kenya National Union of Teachers maintains that the competence-based curriculum is dead upon arrival and is as such urging the government to revert back to the old curriculum that is the 844. This week on Metropol Debrief, Knut Secretary General Honorable Wilson Sossion explaining the position of Knut. Thank you very much for staying with Metropol Debrief. Right now, we are here at the Knut offices and we want to have a conversation with Knut Secretary General Honorable Wilson Sossion. We want to put the competence-based curriculum into context from the teacher's perspective, because most of the time we are seeing the government speaking, we are seeing Cabinet Secretary George Magoha rolling out the programs in school, but where do the teachers stand in this competence-based curriculum overhaul? Thank you very much, Honorable Sossion, for making time. First things first, do you feel there was a need for a complete curriculum overhaul from outcome-based curriculum to competence-based curriculum?
I don't think there was any need, because before you move out of a new curriculum, a curriculum reform process is not a political process. It's a highly professional and scientific process. Before you think of whether you can move, you must undertake a thorough, scientific, and convincing summative evaluation of the existing system. And I'm sure this is a question that is in the minds of Kenyans. What is wrong with 844 that makes us to move out of it? We cannot politically engage in that conversation in the streets or in boardrooms and shift. We must do a thorough study, and this is where the government failed. Even if it purports to have done the way they're telling us, that report was never shared with the public. And therefore, the shift from outcome-based curriculum to competency-based curriculum is foreign instigated. It's instigated by foreign interest with deep, convoluted business interest. And this is where we lose it as a country, because we cannot hand off the sovereignty of the country by giving out the curriculum. The curriculum has a lot to do with development of the human resource of the country. We've got Vision 2030 to produce the most competitive human resource that can compete with the rest of the world. It can only be done through a sound curriculum. And therefore, to shift, we must not do it carelessly, the way it is being done, because somebody walks into the country and prescribe. The competency-based curriculum is not developed in Kenya. It's a copy-paste system that has been imposed on failed states like Somalia. You go to Somalia, you'll see something called competency-based, but it's not anywhere near the ideal competency-based that has been practiced by some countries in the world. It has been imposed on South Sudan, that has relied on 844 of Kenya for a long time. And therefore, for me, whether to shift or not would be guided scientifically by a detailed summative evaluation of 844 that we can share with every Kenyan. It cannot be a press-off of policymakers at the ministry and KICD who are cheating us that this is an original decision of the country, when in fact it is an imposed proposal from out of the country.
However, there are questions that have been raised about 844. One, we are saying it has outlived its time because times are changing. We are now in the fourth industrial revolution powered by artificial intelligence, robotics, blockchain technology. There have been questions about the kind of graduates that we are churning out of schools, pumped with theory but zero practical.
Do you want to tell me that 844 does not possess this? I am not defending 844, but whether to move out of it, it is guided by a scientific study. And that scientific study will lead us to the next step. And that is moving whether to engage in reforms or review.
Okay.
A curriculum can be reviewed, because you can customize the new changes in terms of content, format, and structure to the existing curriculum, and you still have what you want. Or that is what you call review. And 844, to make it stronger and stronger, we should have subjected it to constant review. And we would have done another thorough review to customize the changing situations in the global economy and the global system. Yes, that could have been done. And you see, a summative evaluation study of the 844 will inform us whether we are settling on review or reforms. But here there are no reforms. It is a shift to a copy-paste curriculum that is not homegrown and which is not landing. And in fact, CBC that is being imposed on this country is more inferior than 844. Because even in terms of knowledge and content, in terms of knowledge and content, it is going to be far much lower than the 844. I'm saying so. Look at the format. Tell me which education system in this world that is conducted in large classrooms without tests and without exams will lead to quality products. And you see, this is a shift from emphasis on knowledge. There must be a balance between competencies and knowledge, because the basic education level talks about basic and is about basic knowledge, elimu msingi, that you equip the learner with the basic knowledge in the different areas of studies, all subjects. And that is what 844 has emphasized. Though the other initial objective of the 844 was to equip learners with competencies. In fact, the CBC philosophy is not different from the 844 philosophy. Why then do you depart with a structure that was able to give you the competencies that you are looking for instead of ingraining in the 844? 844 is very rich in terms of knowledge, and it meets squarely the minimum standards of a basic education standard format, that you equip learners with the necessary skills, whether it is numeracy, whether it's reading skills, whether it is science and its own application, whether it's humanities, about values, because values is key. So really,
not good with education.
We are talking about the philosophy. You have asked a fundamental question, that is it really rich in knowledge? And I've answered you. Fundamentally, it is going to lead to the lowest quality of an education system that will be forced to go back. And I'm saying so out of scientific evidence. South Africa tried for quite a while, and they had to drop it because it could not work. Malaysia, a rich economy, changed from outcome-based curriculum to competency-based. And since Malaysia is an industrial economy, they realized they were going to lose in terms of knowledge content, creativity, and scientific innovation. So we are talking about a system that has not been well thought out, and it cannot work in certain economies. And so it has been cut and pasted and brought to Kenya through business avenues. And that is why it is being taken through shortcuts. There is nothing professional about what is happening at the moment. And let me make it very clear. For us, we believe in a relevant curriculum. And that curriculum is born through a scientific process where every step of the way in curriculum review is taken into consideration. And one step leads to the other. And if one step collapses, then that is the end of that process. It cannot be forced. You don't force it. You take it step by step, and you'll eventually arrive at a curriculum that is relevant.
So among the key issues that you've brought up is inadequate or lack thereof of consultation, particularly during this whole process of the curriculum change from 844 to CBC.
Let me take you down memory lane of history of education reforms in this country. Even before the advent of the Kenya Constitution 2010, which requires all policies to be taken through public participation. And when we talk of public participation, we mean public participation, not boardroom meetings. Boardroom meetings does not become public participation. Public means the people of Kenya. And in education, largely since independence, it is one sector that has been taken through comprehensive public participation. In 1964, the government appointed Ominde Commission to undertake realignment of education to the new independence of Kenya in 1964. And views were collected across the country. That was a commission, an education commission draws experts as members, and it engages the public in forums across the country. And that is a true public participation process. That was done in 1964. And that gave rise to the contents of Session of Paper number 10 of 1965 of education. In 1976, there was Gashati. And when you talk of leaders of these reviews, these are experts in education. In 1981, there was McKay that was looking into the establishment of Second University of Science and Technology. That is more university, because there had to be a technological takeoff in this country. That was a big philosophy at that time. And therefore, it called for a commission in place. And as one of the products to actualize the technology and innovation in this country, that commission also reviewed the reforms in education to align the country. And it is what we have as the 844. That was public participation. And 844 was piloted for 4 years, and details and data shared with the public. There was huge public debate, involvement, and conversations. Then Kamunge came in 1988, David Koech ticket in 1999. Then there was Douglas Odhiambo, which went around the country and brought in a report which was voted down by the stakeholders at KICC. Since 2012, we've not had a proper public participation. And therefore, what should have been done was to develop an education commission to midwife the rollout of a new curriculum. And that has not been done. And therefore, our concern is that this process being done is shutting out the public. Every stage of a reform or review process must be shared with the public. The first step, summative evaluation of 844, do a study, share the report with the public. Step number 2, do a needs assessment and tell the country the 21st century skills. If you are talking about artificial intelligence, if you are talking about technological drive, if we are talking about global citizenship, values and ethics, what are the citizens that we are supposed to churn out, then all that will be contained in the needs assessment stage. And it is shared with the public. You don't do that and lock it up in pigeons in the boardrooms of the ministry, because then that does not become a public property. Because you're undertaking a major activity, because education affects every household and it affects millions of children. Stage number 3, which is critical, is then after the needs assessment, is to develop a policy framework. And within the policy framework, you must have the commission in place, engage the public, engage the stakeholders, let them agree, yes, let's have a new curriculum across, yes, on the basis of the needs assessment and summative evaluation. How do we do it? Let us do a national conference in education. We debate, we approve as a country.
Okay.
And then after that, then you can have a session of paper, let parliament debate, let all houses debate. Because of the nature of Kenya, let the county assemblies debate. Because the county assemblies are units of governance in devolution. Let the Senate debate. Let the National Assembly debate. And once the nation, and in fact those institutions are the highest levels of public participation in this country. So that was not done. And as in fact up to now, Parliament has not discussed the new curriculum. Then the question begs, where does it draw legitimacy? All these activities we are seeing. We can say without any iota of doubt, this process is unconstitutional and illegal.
So the government...
Then the next step is to develop a curriculum design. Curriculum design, you must be able to see an education system through from ECD to the university.
Okay.
You must be able to do that. But you see, look at what is obtaining at the moment. The Minister for Education does not even know the borderline between primary and secondary. And he has established a task force to advise him. Meaning the curriculum design framework is poorly done. The universities are asking questions. The secondary section is also not very clear. They don't know. They need the designs. They're questioning about the designs of CBC. And in fact, in Tanzania, CBC at the secondary level was rolled out and teachers reverted to teaching with the pedagogical methods. So the design must be clear and agreed all through. And every stage must be shared with the public. Once you develop the designs, share with the public through a strong communication and engagement system. Then the other stage, the fifth stage, is developing the syllabus design. After the syllabus design, the sixth stage, develop the learning materials and test them. They must be tested. Then the sixth stage, develop, then you do what we call piloting. And piloting is done in a full academic cycle. Prepare the country that in the year 2019, we are doing piloting of this curriculum. It begins in January, it ends in December. And you can repeat for another year and another year and another year. 844 was piloted for 4 years. And at the end of the pilot, you must have a comprehensive summative evaluation report.
So for how long was CBC
and in
piloted?
CBC was piloted between June and October 2017, period. That's what we know. And that is wrong piloting. You cannot begin piloting in the middle of the year. And by October 2017, we have not seen any summative evaluation. To date, to this minute as we are talking, there is no summative evaluation of the purported pilot which was done. And we say the piloting was poorly done, wrong timing, and we don't believe there is any authentic report. 4 months is not enough in the 470 schools. Yeah. And you cannot tell us about national piloting. When every school is trying out a curriculum, it's no longer piloting. It becomes a rollout. Okay. So we've done everything wrong. And it is a pilot summative evaluation report that will inform whether the rollout can be done. So on what basis? The question is, don't tell us about what the government is saying. Government will always say, because it's being misused by foreigners to do certain things.
The government says 350 billion is being allocated to competence-based curriculum, but in the budget only 2 billion has been allocated.
But now, before we come to the economics, that's a completely different topic of financing a new curriculum. And that should have been discussed at the policy making stage. Because at the policy making, you project the cost. What are the requirements in terms of human resource? And what are the costings? What are the requirements in terms of learning resources? And you cost. What are the requirements in terms of infrastructure? And you cost. That should have been discussed at the policy stage. Because you cannot move to the design before you cost. The costing has not been done. And that is why we're saying every stage you are putting the cart before the horse. And that is why this whole train that is purported to have left the station will grind to a halt somewhere a few meters after takeoff, or it will either crash. So the economics of CBC is very complicated. If we want to deliver a true CBC, because if today the nation, the country, from the budget, if it can put on the table, the government can put on the table 365 billion shillings in its budget to roll out from pre-primary 1 to 3, we will say hallelujah. That is one aspect. Number two, if the government can provide teachers who are adequately trained on the pedagogy of delivering CBC, we will allow it to roll out. But you cannot do it with the current teachers. Teachers are not trained. And if you want to roll out CBC, in fact, CBC is a complete teaching pedagogy from the ordinary outcome-based. The teachers of Kenya and majority in the region and the world are trained on outcome-based pedagogy teaching. And that is the framework of their training. And to deliver competency-based, The training is different and it has to change. And if you look at Finland, for example, because an education curriculum is resident in the capacity of the teachers. The question is, even if we give the Kenyan teachers blind trainings that are getting through incompetent trainers, how long will it take for them to be competent to interpret CBC designs and teach using CBC pedagogy? The examples of Finland and Singapore, countries that have rolled out CBCs very effectively. The success of CBC is in the training of teachers and training at the pre-service, not in service, pre-service. Finland has trained teachers to deliver CBC up to master's level. And once you graduate with a master's, to walk into the classroom to teach, you don't walk straight to teach in the classroom. You are taken through processes of classroom observation, lesson observation before you are allowed to teach. There is a lot in CBC. And if this country has to deliver CBC, it must accept that train teachers well and train at the pre-service so that as you graduate teachers at the pre-service, then they begin the rollout of CBC. Okay. You cannot roll out CBC with the current crop of teachers who have been trained and graduated on outcome-based curricula. In fact, what is changing here is not 844 to CBC. What is changing is the teaching pedagogy by teachers from outcome-based to competency-based. That is precisely what is changing. And that is why it is impossible to roll out. Go to the classrooms in Kenya. The teachers who are purported to have been trained have no idea whatsoever about interpreting the CBC designs. That is number one. Number two, in public schools, it is even worse. Classrooms are large. CPC pedagogy requires the smallest class sizes, not exceeding 25, and at worst, it should not exceed 30. And in every classroom of CBC, there must be 3 teachers. Because you are doing highly individualized teaching.
But
teaching every individual.
Do we have that number of teachers and the infrastructure to roll out the CBC?
That's the question. Tell me. Do we have? Does the government have? No, that's a big question. All of us must ask. And these are issues that should have been discussed at the policy table. That really, do we have? If it is grade 1 classroom in our public schools, how are we going to realign grade 1 classrooms to have not exceeding 30 learners? And how is the nation going to avail 3 teachers per class to deliver? If that was done, we would not question anything. But that has not been done. This is what government is avoiding. It's avoiding areas of investment. It's avoiding putting money in its national budget. And it's telling everyone that this will be affordable. A total lie. The truth is, to roll out CBC from grade 1 to 3 requires 365 billion. How much has government put in the current budget? 2 billion. What will 2 billion do? It is a lie. It is only meant to socialize Kenyans to believe that something good is happening. But whether we speak as a union or we don't speak, CBC will die, and it's dead on arrival. Because professionally, it's being mishandled. We are not following the correct steps. One step leads to the next. Because let me tell you, if there is a discussion at the policy stage about the costing, and it is agreed that the economy can absorb, and it is agreed that the economy can absorb, it is costed. Was costing done? Do we have a report on the costing? That this is the human resource required, it costs this much. These are the resources required up to infrastructure, it costs this much. Can the country afford? That was not done. So it's like doing a feasibility study for any project. You must do a feasibility study, know what it costs, and prepare the resources. Okay. This economy, a very fragile economy, can it really afford? Even these trainings being conducted across the country, who is funding them? The World Bank is funding them. All these meetings, national conference, it cannot be done because there is no money. You have to wait for a donor to come and finance. Is the donor going to finance everything within the education system. That is why we are standing out very strongly as a union to point out all these gaps. And our huge question is, are we doing things right? Are we taking, whether it's called curriculum reform or review, are we taking it through the correct process? Did we do the summative evaluation of the 844 properly? No. Did we do the needs assessment properly? No. Did we develop the policy position for the country comprehensively, and even developed legal statutes, instruments to help it? We did not. Did we develop a curriculum design properly that anybody can see through? We did not. Do we have a proper syllabus design? No. Because even government
has had a lot of loopholes.
Even government, away even from the syllabus, the assessment framework. NEC are talking of a national exam in November for all grade 3 children. Then the next day, the minister refutes. KICD are not very clear about the assessment framework. That should be contained in the design. We should not be questioning as to what should be done, what type of exams, what type of assessment. They are still in the limbo of confusion. They even themselves, the drivers of this process, do not understand even the designs of CBC and what should have been done. So we are getting everything wrong. And here we are doing purely experimenting and piloting at the behest of foreigners and business interests. What it will lead in the long run is the biggest iniquity ever witnessed in an education system. Because particularly public schools will not manage, will not afford
But there
this
was
process.
once you said the CBC is meant to drive out public schools and make private schools flourish.
What is it about CBC? In simplistic terms, to drive it well, you need infrastructure. The private investors can avail. The public schools will not.
And a majority of Kenyan children are in public schools.
Yes. To deliver CBC, you need small class sizes. We've seen it. We saw Olympics Primary School and another private school. A class in Olympics Primary School with 105 learners. 105 learners. And a similar class in a private school with 8 learners and 3 teachers. In a private school, 8 learners, 3 teachers. But at Olympics, 105 learners, 1 teacher. And you're supposed to do assessment in every 30 minutes of every learner. So actually, this will lead to total shutdown of public schools. And those who can afford, and proliferation of private schools. And what we are simply saying is that as a country, let us shift education from public to private. The very bare minimum majority of the citizens who can't afford even $1 for a living, where will their children go? Are we giving equity? Are we providing equity to all our children in terms of provision of education? Okay. We are technically violating Section 53 of the Constitution, which is very clear that all children have a right to education. A right to education is education that is equitable, as provided for in the Sustainable Development Agenda Goal number 4, towards equitable quality. Equitable quality education for all children. We cannot create inequity by bringing CBC.
Fine.
And if you want to bring CBC, we are not opposed. Provide the resources, provide the financial resources, the infrastructure resources, and provide teachers. If Kenya is to roll out CBC, it cannot do it in 2019, it cannot do it in 2020, it cannot do it in 2021, it cannot do it in 2022. It must prepare to align resources, train the human resource, prepare the country, pilot the process. The earliest it can be rolled out, if a true CBC is to be rolled out, is 2023, 2024 moving forward. And that means you reduce the domestic debts, make sure that the economy provides resources to drive it like in Singapore. Education gets more money than security. But here in Kenya, even when you slash 6 billion from the security, it causes a big issue.
But
And
Magoha
why are
says
you availing
education gets
2 billion?
33% of the budget, and he said if you ask for more, that means 50% of the national budget.
And we are talking about, when we talk about the economics of this curriculum, we are talking about the Kenyan economy in terms of GDP and even spending. Can it absorb a true CBC? That's the question. Can it absorb? Or you are still running to the World Bank, running to donors to finance trainings? I mean, as a country, if our economy cannot even finance teacher training, what are we talking about when you bring a curriculum? CBC is good, extremely good. It's one of the best systems we have in the world. Finland is at the top. But what does it take to deliver CBC? That's the question.
So CBC is being rolled out, right? It's here. It's happening. For the government to make it work, because you guys are a relevant stakeholder in this, and CBC cannot come to fruition if NAT is not actively involved. What would be your parting shot to Professor Magoha and Dr. John from KICD for CBC to work? How do we need to move forward?
As long as you are engaged in unprofessional activities, you keep your CBC. We will continue teaching using the outcome-based pedagogy, and we are being very honest, because we cannot lie to Kenyans that we can teach using a method we are not accustomed to. Okay. So keep your CBC. We'll continue teaching, and then. But if you are sincere enough, take any curriculum reform process through a professional process, not a politically cooked process. That we will not allow.
Thank you very much, Secretary General.
All the best.
And on that note, we ask you, do you think the 844 curriculum has been of any value to your life and professional life in equal measure? Talk to us, the hashtag Metropol Debrief at Metropol TVKE at Ndero Oganga.